All right, Baba Yaga here, doing a little bit of a different kind of video. So I've got a guy over at my house actually, who's a friend of mine in real life, and has interest in trading and is joined the Discord. CB, C Breezy, I think is name on Discord. Known him for a long, long time. Had some interest in trading, and so we're gonna do just a real quick, simple kind of drawing on. We're going to use TradingView because you don't have a brokerage account, don't have Sierra charts, never done much trading.
No, actually,
Chased a little bit of the meme coin game back in the day.
for the memes,
Shiba Inu to the moon, I
just
think.
just for the memes. That was it.
But looking to learn some more serious stuff about trading, and thought that we could kind of do just the first little part of how I look at structure of the market, how I look at support resistance, how we identify who's winning, who's losing. So which team do we want to join? Um, so we're going to mark up just a small section of the chart, and I'm going to explain as I go. He might have some questions. I might ask him some questions, and then we'll just build on this. We'll do this session here, which we've been working on some stuff tonight for the last hour or so. It's too much to video, but we kind of want to. I want to do a little summary video that you can take, or that I'll send to you, that you can have to review to help you. So we'll just take a handful of concepts, apply them to one part of the chart, ask any questions, whatever, and then you'll take that with you, be able to look at it, mess around on your own on different parts of the chart, and then maybe come come back to it. We'll get back together, mess around with it.
Okay.
So how I look at who's winning and who's losing, and how I decide kind of what some bigger picture targets are and stuff like that, is I take and again, we've talked about a bunch of stuff, so this is more for you to have a great example to work off of, to use for your own homework. And hopefully, guys that watch this, you guys can use it the same, ask questions as well, and we'll do a few little videos like this. So what I'm trying to identify is who is winning and losing ground. So when I think about that, the first thing I think about, and I stole some of this work from Flary, stole some of this work from blogs from back in the day, stole some of this work from, I say stole, but learned from, and then Ox as well, some of the stuff he posts. So these guys will probably say that I'm doing this a little bit wrong, but that's okay. So the first thing I want to do is figure out, are we making, are we winning, are we taking out highs, or are we in the process of taking out lows, right? So the simplest way to think about that is just from the standpoint of like, where are the highs and lows? So I'm going to mark them at the body, the low of the body. And we'll say that if, for instance, if sellers were coming back down to here, from really anywhere in this leg. Okay, so this would be a leg, just a place where it's real obvious. Whoops, that sellers kind of took the reins, right? So sellers did that, da 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 da, and then they stall. So then these buyers that step in, their ultimate target, if we're thinking like big picture, is they want to get above there and hold eventually, right?
Yep.
But to do that, there's a series of work that they have to do to get there. The most immediate work they have to do is they have to clear up this mess. Now, there's a lot of ways to draw swing highs and swing lows. There's a thing called inside candles and outside candles. And an outside candle is when the body, when the high and low of the candle, it takes out the high and low of the previous candle. That's called a outside bar. Okay, so like this candle right here is an outside bar, because see how the high and low of it is bigger than the high and low of the candle right before it?
Yep.
And then an inside bar would be like this candle right here, where it is high and low is smaller than the candle before it. All right, so there's ways to use inside and outside bars to mark it up in more detail. We'll do that another time, but let's just keep it real simple and say that On the way back up, if these guys are serious that bought here, the first thing they got to do is get above here, right?
Yep.
And to do that, as they linger, the job becomes harder because they also have to get above, say, here, and they have to get above here. You see, the longer they spend down here, they have to get above here, right? Because that's a little high that dumped. And they have to get above, well, we'll just call that good. So there's like 3 or 4 areas in here that they need to get above to for this to have paid off. But here's the other thing that starts to happen. These guys that are selling, brush. These guys that are selling here and here and here and here, their target is to get below here, right? So that's their touchdown. All these guys. All these guys that come after this low, their goal is to break it and then get below it far enough that they turn it into resistance. So their goal is to do something like this and continue lower, right? These guys' goal is to do something like, let's say that line was over here. Their goal is to do something like this and continue higher, right? Buyer's goal would be that. So you have this conflicting wills playing out here. Buyers trying to go up, sellers trying to go down. And it gets into a real chop fest. It's hard to trade unless you really zoom in and get into some of the real detail, which we're not going to worry about. Let's just keep it to the simplest, most straightforward stuff, right?
Okay.
So we could say that in the middle of this chunk, since these sellers aren't able to get this, that after they try a few times, we can start to lean towards the be a buyer. But the safest thing to do would be to wait until they break through all of this and they get through here. Because this is important because it's the high that brought you to the low. And that may be language that we haven't used yet. But you see what I'm saying? That's the swing high that the local swing high that brought you to the swing low in this area. So whenever you're looking at an area, you kind of want to get out of that and then you can use that as support. Now, another thing that's happening is here's a little sequence that needs to be won as well. So we're going back now and we're saying what else needs to be won? And this needs to be won eventually. Okay. And you could probably say that like that needs to be won eventually. Right? Swing highs and swing lows. Swing highs and then swing low, swing low. But we're not worried about the lows. We're just going to use it for the highs. We identify how to go for the highs. We can just reverse that and look at lows. So as we see that this held up, so we start to be cautious when if we're selling in here. And the dog is snoring if you hear something in the background. So then what we want to see is we want to see these buyers that are holding this up get above this. Once they get above this, then inside of this area, there should be some support. The most immediate support would come at the areas that they just won, which you see that happen here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like once they do this move and they clear this, then something in here is going to be kind of like turned on. There's a way to think of it, being activated. It's ready to go, right? And it's a buy that you can take. So when you get that push up, clearing this swing high, pull back down, we find buyers defending what is now kind of becoming support. And so a way to look at that, which we talked about this, was we have this, triangle vibe, right? Remember that?
Yep.
Have this triangle vibe. Okay. And you start to see these, and that's just a place where sellers really initiated. And it kind of paints this picture that somewhere in here or in here, we're gonna find the buyers that we hopefully would need to continue this move up because they won the most recent this local battle. So we get that here. This gets used, it gets active. This is where buyers step in. So when that happens, we want to change these to like dashed lines, which means we'd like to see buyers hold that, but it's been used, and then this becomes our spot now going forward because we use these two. These two are used now. That gets us where? Well, these guys that are buying here, their target is what? The most recent swing high? Yep, right
Okay.
there. Bingo. So then we know that for these guys to be successful, their target is to get above here, which they do. Now they're pushing up, and we can go into detail in the future about how this is a high. Well, it's kind of a low, and it's a high, and sort of a low. But basically, you see something weird like that, market, because these guys they win here, they hold. So here's where buyers did their thing, right? Buyers did their thing. Make sense?
Yeah.
Then they push up, and then sellers do their thing in this area. Sellers do their thing. So now you're in a decision point, and this is what catches a lot of people off guard. Buyers are most recently winning here and here, but sellers did defend this area. So as we pull down, what we're looking for is where might buyers be? Well, they've kind of tried this, but this isn't really active yet because, and I say active, we're not really looking for this to hold because buyers haven't won anything above it.
Okay.
They didn't win here yet.
Yeah.
So we wait for us to pull back to where? Well, it pulls back to our magic spot that we left that we didn't test and hold once we got above it because we got above this, we got above this, we got above this. This is another spot that they stepped in, but we still haven't went back and tested this start to this trend, right? So that happens here, and buyers do their thing again and hold that. And then what becomes the target for that trade? This is one for sure.
But there, right?
Yeah, but there for sure. That's what they want to win. Now, look, when they win that, there's actually two other little highs in here, that one and that one. So when they win that, they've now bopped three, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so they've taken out a couple more swing highs when this move happens. So then what's our next untested below? Well, since it's been turned on, that green one, which we see buyers step in again. Are you starting to kind of
Yeah.
pick up on it?
Yeah.
And then buyers go up here and take that out. And then we would want to see buyers hold one of these two or somewhere in one of these valleys that's created. Right? So then let's just mark these guys up. See there. And there. And there. We'd want to see buyers get jiggy in that area once we took that out. Because again, we're taking out this, this, and this, and ultimately this. So when buyers gain all of that, you go back to the thing that hasn't been tested after some stuff was broken above it. Buyers step in there. Do you see how that happens?
Yes.
So the short trade paid because this was untested, this area, but it was tough to be a part of, and we could go to a smaller time frame and probably get a level somewhere in here. But then these buyers, so these guys' target was here. These guys' target was above here. These guys' target was above here. These guys' target was above here. And do you see how everybody kept, like these buyers kept getting something for this? So they were motivated to continue to do that. It's only when they do it and they don't gain above that, and then they find their untested or their, you know, support, one of the supports in here, like they pull back and they try to make another run at it. They kind of hold this area. They don't get any higher. And that's when the trend starts to shift to these guys doing their thing. So now they do that. What do they want to get through? There. They do that. Push back up. These buyers, they want to get over this area. And this is the first time this is the first time they didn't do it. They didn't get over here. Second time, they still didn't do it. So now buyers have they've kind of twice failed um, to get above that. I thought there was there we go. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like these guys, they didn't get anything. So we had to go lower to find more buyers. They weren't able to get anything. So now we're not buyers anymore. Now we want to be sellers. And we want to sell something inside this little triangle, this little cluster at the top. So we get the chance to participate off that little. Remember, I said when we're pushing back up to find a place to sell from, oftentimes it'll be a small green candle.
Yeah.
And that happens there. Right? Which is, it could have been tricky. You might would have taken a stop on that one, but on this one, you would have nailed it. And then you're looking to take out what? These guys. We do that barely. Then we push up, and these guys are like, we're still home. You see that?
Got you.
And then what's the target here? To get through this, right?
Yep.
So they win there. And then look how this stuff starts to activate. So then these guys are like, oh, we're winning. We're winning. You see it? And then the sellers step up. And then their target is to get below this, but ultimately get below this. Right? Because these guys need to beat these guys now. And they beat them. And then we get to this guy who was a seller turned buyer because we got on top. And he hadn't been tested from the other side. And he comes alive. And what's the goal for these guys who finally stepped in and actually did something? So now these guys are all screwed. Their goal is to what? Get above what?
Lost it.
So these guys' goal is to get above what? Up through here.
At least.
I would be looking in this leg right here. I mean, obviously, they want to get back above and rescue their friends. So at minimum, above here, but ultimately back above here, right?
I was looking at that right there.
Yes, that would be probably primary, like
But
initially
you're saying at least.
at least above this leg and above here.
Okay.
And they do. But now look, this is still alive up here. So sellers were still home. So they did win one battle, but then they turn around and lose this one. Because there's still work to get back through, right?
Yeah.
And then these guys' target is to get back below here. You see that?
Yeah.
below here and then back below here, which they do, which then creates where we are now, which we went back down and tested this low. Whoops. And this low. See that? And now these guys' target is to get where? Back above. Ultimately here. Right? I mean, there's some intermediate stuff, but these guys need to really clear this. And if they don't do that, it's more trouble.
Okay.
Now they almost do it, and they pull back, and then they reclaim this, and they push up, then they lose this, then they hold this. So buyers came in, said not today. And then these buyers' target is what? What's the next thing they got to win?
There.
Yep. And they haven't done that yet. They can't afford to give all this up, but they probably will come back and test that. Probably test this. This is where it gets a little bit tough, and I understand that. Somewhere in there. And then those guys will just need to get above this and then this. And then ultimately, this is where, somewhere up in this structure, is where the next place is that you would expect to see sellers show up.
Okay.
If they get above here. So then that's when we go into this area and we go, well, probably somewhere in there. If they get above this a little bit, then probably in there is where the sellers step in. Like, and that'll be like one of these kind of things with like the wick through and then it tanks. Kind of like this. Be what we're looking for. So we're expecting buyers to try to probably keep this party going a little bit, but they gotta get busy. And if they start to lose all this, then there's only a couple of Hail Marys left, and then you got all of this has been tested.
Yeah.
So it could unwind pretty quick. And then we'd have to go back in time to find where buyers stepped up in the past. Right? And we'd say, well, they stepped up here and they stepped up here and then they won here. So these guys, pretty big winners on the whole deal. So that starts to give you some of the other targets below that buyers might be waiting for. At least buyers might be lurking down there, right? Now, I mean, we'd have to clean that up. We can't just have that many lines in an area and be like, oh, somewhere in here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So any questions about that? And here's what you can do. So we've worked through a cycle of pulling down and pushing up and pulling down and pushing up and finding supports and resistances. And I know that's a lot of lines on the chart. And as we move through this stuff and everything, I clean these up. Like you saw my other chart, it's pretty cleaned up, and I keep it pretty local to like the leg that we're either retracing or the leg that we're pushing back up through.
Okay.
But that's kind of it in a nutshell of how I kind of slice the market up. I mean, there's more detail, more nuance, but that's your base level. Like, if I'm on team buyers, what is our goal? If I'm on team sellers, what is our goal? And how do I identify who's winning that goal or who's winning in that fight?
I got you. I think the best thing is send this to me.
Yep.
Let me get my hands on it, rewatch it.
Yeah.
And then as I go through it again, I'll probably have a list of questions.
Yeah, and that would be the best thing. Write down what questions you have, and then literally we can sit down and talk through your questions and record it for people again.
Okay.
So I'm gonna kill this. We'll put this up in on our YouTube channel just to help people out. Hopefully, we'll put this in the Discord as well, and then Ox and Flary can rip it apart. But what I need everybody to know is this is just one part of how we do this process in its most basic form. The biggest picture of like buyers and sellers winning and losing. There's a lot of nuance to knifing out those little levels in there that are kind of sneaky and stuff. But once you get the big idea, you can then take that and apply it down. I mean, this is a 4 hour. You can apply it down to a 1 hour. There's a couple of different ways we navigate 1 hours and all of that. But hopefully, y'all find this helpful. Hopefully, some more videos like this to come. And hopefully, CB starts slaying out here in the next month or so, and you guys can see his progress in the chat. So that's it for this one, and we'll catch you later.